My name is Trevor Lecca, and today's webinar is called Dubsado and ClickUp, the ultimate combo for organization. Now, we all know that Dubsado is fantastic for so many aspects of your business, like projects and clients, all of your templates, saving you time by automating things. And we love that about Dubsado, but we know that there's a lot of other third-party applications out there, like ClickUp, that can really help you maximize your business flow. And today we have a really special guest to come on and talk to y'all a little bit about using Dubsado and ClickUp. Her name is Rachael Mueller, and she's a Dubsado certified specialist, a virtual COO, and a systems expert. She helps service forward business owners and founders optimize and grow their business through sustainable systems, all while taking back control of their time. And she's already helped countless clients execute on their vision, integrate systems, and officially banish the overwhelm for good. So I cannot think of a better person to come on and talk to us about using both Dubsado and ClickUp. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring on Rachael Mueller. And always takes just a second. There we go. Hey, Rachael, how's it going?
Hey, Trevor, excited to be here. Hello, everyone tuning in.
I'm so excited to have you here as well. Thank you so much for taking the time. I really do appreciate
Absolutely. I think that I could talk about this stuff all day, so I'm stoked about this.
it. Yeah, I get that vibe too from talking to you just a minute ago. I could talk about Dubsado all day as well, and I know
Yep.
you have so much knowledge to share. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of your hair in just a second here. But for folks who are tuning in live, if you have questions while Rachel's talking, please feel free to throw those in the webinar chat or the Q&A. Either is totally fine. If it's a quick question, I'll go ahead and tackle it right then and there. Otherwise, I'm going to earmark those questions for the end for the Q&A. Cool. All right. I'll see you guys in a little bit. Thanks, Rachel.
Cool. Okay, thanks, Trevor. Appreciate it. Okay, hello, everyone. I've been reading the chats. I'm loving seeing where everyone is tuning in from. It looks like we have gone international, which is awesome. Someone is here 3 a.m. in Sydney. Thank you so much for being here. That's amazing. I'm really excited to jump in. Let me go ahead and share my screen and we will dive right in. Okay, cool. So can someone in the chat just drop a little thumbs up? Let me know that we are rocking. You can see my screen. You're seeing my presentation. You're good. Thank you, Trevor. Okay, great. So hello. If we haven't met, hi, my name is Rachael. You can call me Rach. My pronouns are she, her. And I have probably a very similar story to a lot of you as a business owner, if you're here, that you can relate to. About 10 years ago, I started my first business, and I was always an organized person, but definitely unbalanced. And it was easy for me to get stressed out and overwhelmed. And I never said no. And I took on way too much. And I felt like I was keeping track of all of the things by myself. And I was working so hard and I was so busy and I was exhausted. My mindset was busy equals productive. And this is where I got stuck because I was constantly moving and I was going, but I was working on the things that didn't move the needle forward. And so I was stuck working in my business on all of these admin things and I wasn't really able to breathe. And I learned very quickly that this mindset and this lifestyle was not sustainable. And I was totally burnt out. Can anyone relate to this feeling? Maybe you've had this in the past. Maybe you're relating to this feeling now. Drop a comment. Let me know. Yes, I'm seeing it. I preach 100%. Yeah. So I pivoted and I made some major changes behind the scenes. I dove headfirst into self-development. I started asking for help. I learned how to delegate and outsource and actually how to manage others and how to ask for help. That's the big one. And my biggest shift of all was I started to use all the tools that I could get my hands on, and I created a very powerful system that worked for me. And this is a part of my signature framework that has helped clients banish the overwhelm, balance their time, and get more done. And this is part of what we're going to be going over today, talking about some of my favorite tools. So to start us off, I want to ask you a question. What is your time worth? You can probably relate to the feeling of wearing all the hats and doing all the things in your business. And when you first get started, that is totally normal. But as you start to grow and scale, your time becomes incredibly valuable. And it's important to reassess where you are spending your time, even down to the smallest task. So Dubsado is absolutely amazing for client-facing stuff. We know this. We love this. If you're here, you use Dubsado for a lot of things behind your business, right? Dubsado is your home base for anything client related, contracts, your proposals, your invoicing, scheduling, your emails, your onboarding and offboarding workflows, all of this good stuff. And I've had clients share that using Dubsado templates and workflows have taken their process down from an hour to just 5 minutes to send a proposal. That's amazing. But what about everything else? The stuff you have to do every day, your client projects, your home life. Where does it all go? Chances are, if you don't have a set system or a process or a tool, it's living in your brain. Or maybe it's just on your phone notes. Or you have 100 different Google Docs with random ideas floating around, and there isn't really a process here. Enter ClickUp. ClickUp becomes your home base for everything else. So your lead trackers and your projects and your tasks and your to-dos and SOPs and templates and time tracking. There's so much that you are able to do in the platform, and you're not replacing Dubsado. You're expanding what's possible using another tool to support everything else behind the scenes that you do as a business owner and just as a human, because there's a lot of moving parts. So the first thing also that I want to mention too is keep in mind, while I am going through this, I'm going to be using ClickUp as our main tool, but a lot of these concepts can apply to any project management tool you're using, whether that's Asana or Monday or Notion, etc. There's a lot of great platforms out there. The goal is to find what works for you. So I don't know about you. Personally, I find that slideshows can be a bit boring. So I don't want to just be droning on and talking at you the whole time and just reading some slides like a middle school biology teacher. So I'm going to share my screen. We're going to jump right in. I'm going to keep this casual and take you for a spin on how all this works, platform, my favorite features, all of that good stuff. So let's jump right in. Let me make sure I've got my ClickUp. Cool. Okay, we are here. Move this over here. The shuffling of the screens. Okay, can someone confirm you are seeing my ClickUp now? Just want to make sure that I've got the right screen share. Yes, thank you, Angie. Okay, cool. So first thing that we want to talk about is lead tracking and preventing ghosting. So big problem for a lot of folks is inbox chaos, leads falling through the cracks. Solution, using the Dubsado contact form is great. The Dubsado pipeline is absolutely incredible for organizing this, right? You're using the Dubsado contact form, you have this embedded on your website. So when somebody fills that out, they immediately drop into your Dubsado. Maybe you even have a workflow set up that's sending them a welcome email. This is a great process. This gets the ball rolling. But how do we keep up with it? Or remind yourself to follow up? Or just remember the last time that you sent somebody that follow-up without having to go in and check your emails? The solution is ClickUp. So what I'm going to do is actually do a quick hierarchy kind of walkthrough of ClickUp, just to give you an idea of how it works, crash course, so it all makes sense, and the terms that I start using as I'm then demoing what you can do in ClickUp actually make sense. So for starters, when you log into ClickUp, you will see your home screen. I love this as a home base because it allows you to see your calendar, your tasks, all in one place. So already you have this central hub and this focus of everything in one location, and that's really, really nice for our productivity and our focus. Now, from there, we want to talk about the hierarchy of how everything is organized. So there are 3 things here that we need to know. One is our spaces. Spaces is the location of something. I always like to organize this based on like the categories of your business. So we've got, in this case, in my sample, we've got personal, team, clients, marketing, and our templates. So those are the different parts of your business. And then within that, you might have folders, different sections of those parts of your business. So for example, under marketing, you might have your content. Under clients, you would have your different client spaces and pieces that are there for organizing. Under team, you might have office management tasks or operations and your SOPs. Under personal, etc. You see where I'm going with that. Underneath spaces, you then are able to have folders and then lists. For the most of this workshop, we're going to be talking through lists. And at the end of this, I will also be gifting you a ClickUp list that you can use and implement for yourself. but we'll get to that at the end. I'm getting ahead of myself. So going back to our lead tracking and follow-up. So the easiest way to organize this and make sure that you have clear visibility on everything that is happening and things aren't falling through the cracks is by creating we'll call it a spreadsheet, a table view that you can then organize things that much more. So I've created a sample one here for us, and the benefit of this is we can see here how you can organize things even deeper, keep track, have notes, and see everything at a glance all in one place, which is really, really helpful when you are going in. Let's say you give yourself a task that on every Monday and Wednesday, you are following up with your leads and making sure that people don't have questions and checking in, right? This makes it very easy for you to be able to do that. And you can go in and you can say, okay, my lead Winston, he scheduled our call. Cool. And Schmidt got the pricing. Shout out to anyone that gets these new bill references. Schmidt got the pricing, and we want to follow up and make sure that they didn't have any other questions, right? So we're going to reach out to him and that kind of thing. And we can then add some comments and remind ourselves, hey, I did this on this date and this happened then, and we can update those things. So let's say, for example, that like we had that call with Winston and it went great. And we're going to say, okay, now we actually need to send Winston the proposal. That's our next step. Or we need to make sure that we follow up with Winston in 2 days. So we're going to say we're going to follow up with Winston. Oh, it'd be so great if I could click on the date here. Oh, date created. There we go. Due date. That's why. Okay. So follow up with Winston. Let's say we're going to follow up with Winston on Friday. So we would do that. And now I will get a reminder saying, hey, Rachel, when you log in on that home screen that I showed you, you got to follow up with Winston today, right? So that makes it very easy for us to be able to track everything. We have that clear visibility, easy follow-up, faster conversations. And then when we're ready to do our follow-up, we would pop back into our Dubsado with our lead flow or our email templates, and it'd make it a very easy process for us to just pull that up, maybe customize it if we need to, and go ahead and hit send. And then we can remind ourselves when that actually happened. So you're giving yourself that whole process at a glance, which is really, really nice. I also want to mention too that, and we'll talk about this as we go through different parts of ClickUp, that the customization of ClickUp is really cool because you can really make it work for your brain with different views, different colors, all of that good stuff, which we'll talk about. But the biggest thing is the views. So right now I'm in a table view, but you can also look at this in a list view. You can look at this in a board view. So depending on how your brain works and how you want to organize things, you are able to do so. Now, the only one that I've really customized is this table view with all of those pieces that I want to see, but you can add those pieces in here as well. You can organize this, you can drag and drop, and you can add more of those what are called custom fields, which we'll talk more about, and you can add those pieces in. So let's say, for example, we're going to go ahead and add our company name in here, just like we had on the table view. And then let's say I want to make sure, let's say actually that it's not just you. Let's say that you have a team and you have different people assigned to different leads. Great. Maybe we actually want to see the assignees so we can see that like this one's assigned to me, but maybe this one is assigned to Jessica, et cetera, right? So we can see who is handling what, and that can make it really, really easy as well. Now, the biggest thing is we've created this. This is awesome for being able to track things. And also, we don't want to be doing this manually. The goal is not to be giving ourselves more work. So we want to make sure that we are having our tools do the heavy lifting for us, which is where a wonderful tool called Zapier comes in. Zapier is a fantastic tool that allows things to move forward even when we aren't in front of the computer. It can connect the dots for us, and it speaks to different pieces, different tools, and connects the dots for us. So let me pull up our Zapier. Here we go. Okay, So what I'm about to show you, I also want to preface and say that you can set up a free Zapier account. So like I said, Zapier allows platforms to connect and talk to each other. And similar to the Dubsado workflow, what we're basically doing is when this happens, whatever that trigger is, then this happens, our action, okay? So it's a very similar process. It's just a little bit more detail that we're adding in. So to set this one up, we're basically saying to drop somebody into that lead tracker, we would be saying when a new project is a lead, we want to create them as a task. So that's the default in ClickUp is any of those line items that we saw with Winston and Jess and Schmidt, et cetera. Those are all called tasks, and we can organize them to be different types of tasks, but essentially that's the base, is it's a task. So we're creating a new task. And the way we would do this, we're saying that in Dubsado, when we get that new project as a lead, then we would create that task in our space. So we're going to say that we're adding it into wherever that list lives. So you create your list that I just showed you in ClickUp, and then you would go ahead and add them in. And we are going to pull in all of those Dubsado pieces that we ask on our Dubsado contact form, and we're going to have ClickUp then get all of that juicy information. So we're going to add all of those pieces in, drop all of those custom fields in, and then when we go back into our ClickUp list and we look at, let's say, our Rachael option. Ooh, I had one here. Okay, wait, hang on. I think I marked it as closed. Hang on. Here she is. Okay, so this was the one that I dropped in from that Zap behind the scenes before this started. So we can see here when Rachael filled out the contact form that it dropped her in here yesterday. So it added in the information that we connect the dots to. It added in her name, company name, when it was created, and her email address over here. And then from here, it's then able for us to start the process for us. So by default, it would drop things in as new when they're just first created, but you can customize these. And that's the really cool thing too about statuses is they can be as custom, colorful, branded, however you want them to look, which is really, really nice. So if you ever wanted to change statuses and move things through your process, you can absolutely update these. So let's say you want to change these to your verbiage, that instead of sent scheduler, maybe the way that you say things is sent calendar, right? Or sent call invite, or whatever that looks like. You can word these however you see fit. We can also have our done statuses, so we can have things like ghosted, not a good fit, didn't move forward. And you can track all of these things in Dubsado. But the nice thing about doing them in here is then over time, you're able to, really look at them in that spreadsheet view and see and track and understand what is where. And it makes it very easy for us to be able to move things forward when we start onboarding. So I also want to preface here that I really had to practice restraint. I didn't want to go too deep into all the features on this class because we would be here for probably literally forever. But let's just talk about the basics. So let's say that Rachael had that call and it went great. And we send her her proposal and she signs and she pays and our Dubsado onboarding workflow begins and it kicks things off and it sends her the kickoff call schedule link and the intake form, and all of those pieces are happening, which is fantastic on the client-facing side. But what about you behind the scenes? Every time you onboard a client, if you're reinventing the wheel, if you're forgetting steps, goes back to my question earlier when I asked you, what is your time worth? You're probably spending way too much time queuing things up for a project. So the solution is ClickUp templates for onboarding. We can add in automations. There's a lot of goodness that we can do here. So let me go ahead and pop us in. Let's say that Rachael went ahead and booked. So we're going to say, cool, Rachael went ahead and booked a project. We're going to mark her as done. I will come back to this because we're going to talk about automations in ClickUp. towards the end. And we also now want to start onboarding. So you can see here as I walk through like really fast at the beginning, we've got our client space. So let's say we've got a couple different types of businesses here. Let's focus on, let's say, website projects. Okay. Let's say Rachael is a new website project. So we're going to drop into our templates and we're going to find our client onboarding template. And this is the base template of all the stuff that we do every single time we have a new project that we are onboarding. So that might also include our onboarding tasks and understanding what is it that we do every single time and making sure these things are actually happening. Because like I said, our Dubsado workflow is sending somebody their onboarding piece, right? It's sending them their intake form and the link to schedule. But then it's kind of out of our hands, right? We've sent it to them. Now it's on them, and we want to make sure they actually do it. So we need to make sure we are following up. So this is why it's really helpful to have things like onboarding form, the kickoff call is scheduled, and reminders for you, countersigning your Dubsado contract. If you have to set up the reoccurring invoice, prepping for the kickoff call, all of these pieces that need to happen to make sure that you are moving things forward. We have our custom statuses here too that can be different than what they were for the lead tracker because this is a different process. So we can have things like if it's new, to do, or in progress client, as you can see here for the onboarding form and the kickoff call, right? All of these pieces and making sure that these things are being tracked. We can then also have custom fields, which are really cool. You can get really, really nitty gritty with these. I showed you on the lead tracker some options for like even just the company name. That would be a custom text field. But you can also have custom drop down fields. So we can organize parts of the process by the phase that we do them in. Or you can also have the assignee and due dates to make sure that you and or your team is getting notified of them. You can prioritize things. So like really wanting to make sure that the kickoff call getting scheduled, that is a high priority. We want to make sure that that is happening and we need to follow up with them a day later. Let's see, right? You are also able to time estimate and track your time in ClickUp, which is a really cool feature because one of the biggest things, I don't know about you, but I experience this a lot for myself and my clients have mentioned this too, is that it can sometimes feel very easy to lose track of what we are working on and being realistic about how long things might actually take us, right? If we say, for example, that like this website project is going to take us 5 hours. All the web designers are like, what website takes 5 hours? I know, it might take longer. Let's say 5 hours. But there's more than just build website, right? We are saying that we have piece 1, 2, 3, etc. And maybe we want to actually be realistic and understand how much time these things are going to take. So we're going to say that piece 1, this one might be the bulk. This one's going to take us 2 hours. But then piece 2, that's a quick 20-minute task, let's say. So we're going to say that one is 20 minutes. And we can start to really understand and add our time up. And then we can even calculate our estimate of how much time this project is going to take us so we can plan. This becomes really, really valuable, especially as you start to get better and better and understand how much time things are how much time things are taking you. You can really then start to understand, okay, these projects, this small project takes me 5 hours. This big project, these are 12, 15, 20-hour projects, right? So really, really understanding and knowing when and how you are prioritizing your time, planning for projects and that kind of thing, so you don't end up in a situation where, let's say, next month you booked 4 new projects, great, and also, do you physically have the time to complete all of those, right? So it's a really good way for us to be able to assess and realistically understand. And then on top of that, you can track your time. So you can then see, hey, in my brain, am I actually accurate and understanding how much time these things are taking? And am I being reasonable and realistic about these pieces? Okay. The other thing too that I'll mention here is that, I duplicated the template here, but you can customize this. So this is yours to do. So let's say you duplicate this for Rachel's project, and now we are dumping some things in. So maybe there are a couple of things that are custom for Rachel's project that we don't have on the template because we do them differently, or we're adding them on for her. So let's say for this project, we have homepage copywriting, right? Maybe that's like its own thing in and of itself. And then we can have subtasks for that. So we can say like, okay, homepage copywriting, let's say we want to draft first copy. And then we also, gosh, I feel like this always happens when I come up with an idea for something. I literally draw a blank at like any possible other ideas. So let's say draft first copy is a good example for our subtasks. Then we can be very realistic again with breaking that down. And when we go through and we say, okay, we've done all of those pieces, great, now our homepage copywriting is done, and we can move on to the next one. So it can get very specific. It can be very just nice to be able to organize all your thoughts and make things that much easier for you. I'm not going to show you examples of the next piece that I'm going to talk about in Zapier because it's getting more complicated. And like I said at the beginning, I really want to make sure that I'm keeping this just simple to start for sure. But there are other ways too that like you can connect Dubsado and Zapier to your ClickUp and that kind of thing. Like when the Dubsado contract is signed, then maybe that triggers something in your Zapier to send something to ClickUp that is like your onboarding template or something, and it starts moving things forward for you automatically. That is also an option too. So there's a lot of little pieces in there that you can go and do more and get really techie with it. But when you're first getting started, my recommendation is to really focus on the easiest place to start. With any tool that you are using, if you jump in and you start to automate every little thing, if you start to try and do something or your process changes in the slightest, or let's say we have a special situation, if it veers off the path of whatever that automation is that you have created, it can then get very tricky and you can feel like you're breaking things because you're trying to do things in a different way than what the automation wants to do by default, right? Maybe you've experienced this with your Dubsado workflows too. So I would definitely recommend that you start simple, create some of these lists, which I'm going to give you a template for this at the end, and start to just kind of brain dump some of these pieces for yourself. If you are, I'm going to keep using the example of being a web designer. If you're a web designer and let's say that you have a branding package, you have a branding and web package, and then maybe you have just a website build. Okay, that's 3 different things. Well, maybe that's 3 different processes for how you do your business process. And very similarly to how you would sit down and you would build out your Dubsado workflows, where you would say, okay, after the contract is signed, then this happens, then this happens, then we do this. You want to do the same thing for your process behind the scenes, brain dumping all of those things that you do standard for those projects. Okay. Then from there, now you have your template. So you would have one that was called, maybe we'd call this client onboarding website, client onboarding brand and website, et cetera. And you see where I'm going with that. So it allows us then to be able to just create less from scratch, save so much time, less manual work, more consistent experiences for everybody involved. Okay, before I move on, let me see if there were any questions that popped up here that might be like quick and easy to answer. And then I'll answer the majority of them at the end when we do more of like our Q&A situation. Yes, you very easily can double assign. So you can just easily click on, I'm in my test account, so I don't have anything else in here, but you could absolutely just add more than one person and you would both then be assigned to it. So very, very easy to do. Let's see. Yes. Great. Cool. Okay, great. Awesome. I think then we'll go ahead and just answer anything else that pops up. I know Trevor's taking notes for me. I'll make sure to answer anything at the end. Okay, let's jump into our next piece, which is organizing your brain beyond just what's the word that I'm looking for? Beyond just the client work. That's the word that I'm looking for. Because there's a lot more that you do behind the scenes besides just client projects. So there are some really cool ways that in ClickUp, you can organize your content planning, your marketing, your admin tasks and ops, personal reminders, because you're human and you got to remember to change your sheets and schedule your doctor's appointments. So really being able to customize these pieces is very, very helpful. So with that being said, let's pop back in. Let's start. Let me think. Where do I want to start us here? Let's go ahead and start. Let's start with marketing. Actually, that sounds fun. So for content planning, really cool ways that you can set this up to have all of your content in one place. So we've got our marketing space. We can then create a content folder, and in that folder, we can then have different lists for our different platforms. So let's say that we have got our Instagram, our email, our blog, our Substack, our LinkedIn. You see where I'm going with that. You can have a list for all of your different platforms. And within that, let's say that you've got all of your posts, your ideas, all of that good stuff that you've got organized. You can brain dump all of those pieces in here. Again, we've got custom statuses for this one because this is different than maybe something else. You can also have different statuses for every platform if you want to. So again, you can really, really, really make it super bespoke for your process, which is really, really nice. We can also differentiate between our schedule date and our due date because those are two different things, right? In an ideal scenario, in an ideal world, we are not drafting and creating our content the day that we're posting it all the time. Sometimes we want to be intentional, especially when it comes to like emails and that kind of thing. So you can be very specific with when those things are actually getting created and drafted. And then if we look at our content planner, we can have a calendar view and we can look at things at a glance and see all of those platforms in one place and see how those things stack up. We can also organize things here. So we can move things around. We can say, okay, this Instagram post, we're going to schedule that. This email is here. And then we can click into things. And this is the first time that I'm actually opening a task for you to see what it looks like. And we can have more here. So my favorite way of using task spaces like this, especially when it comes to like content creation, is drafting stuff in here so that we can have all of our little goodies in here that we're writing. Let's say, you know, this is our email that we're doing. Okay, welcome to this week's newsletter, etc. And then when this is done, let's say maybe we can now say, okay, cool, this needs to get reviewed, or we need a caption, graphic, we need to edit this, or this is ready to draft. So then we're going to open up our Flowdesk, our Mailer Lite, our MailChimp, our ConvertKit, wherever we have our emails, and we can draft it in. And then we're going to say that this is ready and this is drafted. Or maybe we scheduled it and it's done and we can move this off of our plate. And there are really cool ways of using automations too that I'm going to talk about next, how we can move these things forward even more. Let me see if I missed anything here from my notes on this piece. Yeah, okay, cool. So I think that covers everything. Oh, no, you know what? Another cool feature that you can do here too is also, remember we talked earlier about views and being able to see different things. So maybe this one, we have this organized just by our schedule date, but maybe we want to also have a calendar and see our due dates. We can have that separate. Or if we want to, we can just have a list view of everything and see, okay, all of our Instagram in one location and all of our email and see everything at a glance, because this can be really cool to kind of brain dump all of our ideas, that kind of thing. So it can make it very easy for us to be able to see all of those pieces in one place. The other place that ClickUp or any project management tool can help you is for your own like admin task and operations and personal tasks behind the scenes. Like I said, you're human, you got stuff to do, and you want to make sure that you're keeping track of all of that. So let's jump into our personal space and we can go to our stuff list. And here is where we would have and brain dump all of the other things behind the scenes that we are doing. So for example, let's say that we have all of our chores that we're doing, laundry, changing sheets, watering our plants, grocery shopping, meal planning, all of that good stuff. We can brain dump all of that in, and we can then have a custom field that tells us our frequency. Is this something we do weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, etc.? And we can keep track of these things and make it very, very easy for us to never lose track of these things. The benefit, less mental clutter, right? And I think this is one of the pieces that sometimes folks can forget about, which is that these tools are not just for business. These are for everything. Like, I'm going to be honest with you guys, like my entire life is in ClickUp. I have got my chores, my travel planner, my meal planning, my reading tracker, along with everything else that I do for my business. And hey, Rachel, behind the scenes, like if ClickUp goes down, I go down with it. And it's great that way because now I no longer keep anything in my head. Like if it's not written down, if it's not on the calendar, if it's not on my ClickUp, I don't remember it. But that's okay because my brain is able to relax and know that, hey, we got it. It's there. I don't have to keep remembering this and don't forget that and waking up in a panic at 2 a.m. because I forgot to do that thing again. It's all where it needs to be, which is really awesome. Some other cool things that you can do in ClickUp as well is the option to have your SOPs in here. You can have your team operations in here. So you can have any pieces for all of that stuff that needs to happen every day. Again, you can assign those to your team. And one of my favorite features that I have been using in ClickUp for probably almost a year now, actually, is I replaced my Loom with ClickUp Clips. You're able to video record in ClickUp directly, which is really, really nice because then you can consolidate without having to have extra tools, which can be really nice. Okay, let's move on. Let me see here. Okay, so next, we're going to talk about a few of my favorite things, which I've kind of started to tease a little bit, but let's get into more of the nitty gritty stuff here. So we talked about statuses and how you can organize these. You can change them. You can change the colors if you want, and you can actually do custom colors. So if you want everything to be in your brand or in a really beautiful specific color palette, go for it. The goal is, I personally think, to make your space, your platform, as fun and easy as possible so that you know, hey, this is a fun place. I like logging in here. It's cute and I'm happy when I'm in here. If you don't like it, you're not going to use it, right? So do whatever you need to do to make it your space. You can even add emojis in here if you want to. You can see how I've also customized all of our space icons. I've customized our list icons. You can really, again, have fun with this and really make it feel like a fun space. You can also just paste in emojis here if you want to. You can Google an emoji, grab it, and add it in and have that be in the name as well, which is really fun. We talked about custom fields too, right? Being able to customize these and make like some really bespoke things for your process, which is really cool. You can also do, and I realize I'm running through things very quickly here. So if you have questions, just drop them. I'll make sure to come back to them. But you can have really cool things in here too, like custom task types. So if you remember at the very beginning when we were talking about in Zapier, where when a new lead from your Dubsado, we're creating a task in your ClickUp. Well, not everything is going to be the same type of task, right? The to-do for your changing sheets is not the same thing as our new lead, Rachael. Rachael is a person. We might want to differentiate. So we can actually do what's called custom task types. And you can see here how instead of it being that little circle, which is the default task, we now have a little person icon. So this is what's called task types, which is really nice to be able to, again, just add that little extra something to organize things, make it feel custom, make it feel bespoke for you, which is really cool. You can also, like in your content space, for example, we can have all of our content pieces. Let's say we actually, instead of those being tasks, we want these to be a little video icon, and we can change those to be a little video icon. So then the default is now everything is a little video, right? So it's just really cool being able to customize those pieces. When you're in your task, I see this, Bethany, your question just popped up and I'm about to tell you. You can customize what your task type is, just the way that you would change the status. Go to task type, and then you can change it here. By default, the only thing you're going to see here is task and milestone. Anything else is a custom task type that you need to create, and you can edit those. You can create those. So you can go into your task types and you can have the ones by default that ClickUp recommends, or you can also create your own if you want to, and you can add those in and you can call it whatever you want, and you have a zillion icons that you can choose from. So again, you can get really specific with how you want to customize your spaces, which is very, very cool. Let's talk about next reoccurring due dates, because this is a really important one. And then we're going to talk automations. So let's use our, what do I want to do? Let's use our personal list, because I think I got a couple due dates in here, actually. Yes. Okay. So really cool piece that you can have in your ClickUp is, instead of something being a one and done kind of task, maybe it's something like these chores that repeat weekly for you. And you want to make sure that every week on, what's today? Wednesday, when you log in to your ClickUp on your home screen, that you see this chore pop up for yourself and remind you without having to create it every single week, right? You can do a reoccurring task. So where you have your due date, you can actually set this up to reoccur weekly, every week on Wednesday or Friday or whatever you want that to be. And we will create a new task, and then we'll hit save. And then every time we mark that as complete, ClickUp is going to be awesome and create a new one for us with the next due date. So now we will see that this due date is now next Friday, and it's already moved it forward for us. So this is one of the best ways to make sure that, like, when you brain dump those pieces at the beginning, when you're first getting started, and you start to really think about things zoomed out from that perspective of, okay, I do these things every day, I do these things weekly, and you're getting those ideas out. And then you can start to give yourself some consistency with that and really make sure that things aren't falling through the cracks. And that you're also not keeping things in your head, because that's super important too. Okay, let's talk automations. I get really excited about automations. So I'm going to try, like I said, I don't want to overwhelm you. I'm going to keep this super simple, talking about this piece, which is the, let's look at our lead tracker. Remember when we marked Rachel as booked? Wouldn't it be cool if we had an automation that was connected here, that when we mark someone as booked, it moves them from our lead tracker into our client tracker? We can do that. I've already set it up for us, so we're going to look at it. So we can say in here with ClickUp automations, when something happens, do this. So again, we talked about that with our Dubsado workflow automations, with Zapier automations. It's always going to be an if this, then that happens, right? So let's say our status changes from scheduled call, new inquiry, all of those pieces, to booked. Then we are going to duplicate this person to our client tracker. So when I marked Rachel as booked, if I go into our client tracker, we can now see here that it has added Rachel here as onboarding. So we're ready to roll now with Rachel for onboarding. And then we can say, okay, we know we're ready to onboard. Now we're going to go ahead and duplicate our client onboarding template, and we're going to move things forward. We can also get even more granular if we want to. We can create another automation in here, that a second piece that, like, when it duplicates them to the client tracker, maybe then we want to create a task for ourselves. And we're going to say, so-and-so has booked, it's time to onboard. And then maybe we give ourselves, oh wow, I can't type. There we go. We give ourselves a description of what we want this to be. So let's say we want this to be all the things that we need to do and remember to do, right? We want to make sure that we duplicate onboarding template, and et cetera, et cetera. And we can give ourselves those checklists and those reminders to do those pieces. We can even assign ourselves a due date. So again, nothing is falling through the cracks. We can make sure that this is also assigned to us. So we can click ourselves and say, great, and this is due on immediately after we set that up. I know this is getting a little bit more complicated, so I'm going to stop here because I don't want to overwhelm you, but just know that this is a great example of showing you is like what is possible, right? Remember what I said earlier? Take things slow, make sure that you're not getting too in the weeds of creating all these really cool automations right away. I just want you to focus on the basics, but just know that these things are possible, which is really cool. Another example to show you for automations would be, let's say we're talking project management, like a client project, and you want to make sure that when something goes from being, let's say, from in progress to then being marked as review or approval, and you have a team. This is a really cool piece where, let's say, instead of being now assigned to Rachel, maybe now this gets reassigned to Jessica, and the due date changes to due tomorrow, and she needs to go in there and review it. That's another piece that you can do too in our automations, where we can say, when something changes to approval, the status, we can reassign it to myself, to Jessica, to whoever we want. And then from there, we are then able to change our due date to 1 day later. So again, making sure that these things are moving forward without us having to do extra manual work or feel like we're skipping things or forgetting things or whatever that looks like. Okay, the last thing, two more things that I want to quickly talk about. One, which is ClickUp Chat. So ClickUp Chat is awesome. I've been using this with clients and also with my team for a while now, and it has totally replaced the need for Slack, which is really cool, especially when we talk about our next piece, which is dashboards. So client dashboards are really cool. I mean, dashboards in general are really cool to create in ClickUp because you can do kind of like an aggregate of all of the things, which is really cool. So you can go into, let's say, your client hub template that you have created here, and you can have all the tasks that you're working on. You can share this with your client. You can add them in even, and you can have things assigned to them. So if you need to make sure that they know what's happening and if there's stuff for them to do before you can do your thing, you can easily track that all in here. You can also link to different pieces like your resources or their Drive folder or their Dubsado portal where they can find their contract and their invoice, etc. And you can have all of that in one beautiful home base that can make it very, very easy to track everything. You can also, in dashboards, I mean, you can get really nitty gritty with this, which is really cool, as far as like having, let's say, a resource hub for your business. You can have like all of your Dubsado scheduler links. You can link to them here. You can also have your brand kit and your content planner and like all of those pieces all in one, again, location, making it very easy to share this with anyone and also very easy for you to bookmark this and find everything you need from all different places in one single location, which is really, really cool. I think that might be everything. I know that was like a lot that we ran through. So I want to hold space now for questions. Let me take a sip of water. And Trevor, if you could help me out, what questions did I miss? All of that good stuff.
Hey, Rachel, that was fantastic. You definitely deserve a sip of water after all that. I know that was a lot of content to get through, but thank you so much for doing all that. And we do have a good number of questions, although I do want to also note, if you have questions while we're going through these, please feel free to continue adding those into the chat, folks. Let's just go right off the top here with some of the newest ones, since the context will be the freshest, then we'll double back to the ones that I've recorded here. So Calvina had asked, can we do that with clients without adding them to the team? Hopefully that question makes sense. There's going to be some questions here. I think the context might be a little bit missing, but I think what you were just referring to, she was saying, can we do that with clients without adding them to a specific team? As far as I think that chats area that you were looking at.
Yeah, for sure. So anything within ClickUp, there are some things that you can share publicly. So like, I didn't even talk about this, but like there's a docs feature in ClickUp and you can share those publicly on the web so anyone with a link can see them. You can also share some different features. So like as a guest view, so anyone with a link can view them. But if you want somebody actually added in so that you can assign something to them so they actually get notified, then you're going to need to have them, they'd have to have their own ClickUp account. You would add them into your account as a guest. And you actually get a certain number of guest seats included in your membership, depending on your tier. If you have questions about that, just send me a message. We can get, into the details of that. But you can include that as a part of that option as well. So hopefully that helps answer that question.
Got it. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I think that parlays nicely into another question that we had, which was, someone was asking, they had to leave a little bit early, but they were curious about your free templates. Do you want to share the link to that right now, or how can they access that free templates? I know some folks were definitely curious to get a hold of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the one that I'm sharing for you today is just that base project management template that we went through that you're welcome to customize. So head to this link, drop your email in, I'll email it over to you. My little automated robot will do that. And then you can grab that and get yourself started.
Sweet. Yeah, I just went ahead and threw that in the chat right there.
Perfect.
And then somebody else had asked, how can I hire you to set this all up for me? I think they're plugging you perfectly. So you want to talk a little bit about how folks can find you?
Amazing. Yes, absolutely. So if you want more hands-on support, you can definitely head to my website. I'm also I'll make this super easy for us. I'm going to go ahead and just drop my schedule link, my beautiful Dubsado schedule link here in the chat. And so if anyone wants to schedule a call to actually chat more about your ClickUp, your processes, everything behind the scenes, schedule a call with me because I would love to get nerdy with you.
Fantastic. Sierra had also asked, do you sell other ClickUp templates? Because she just wants everything. She's so excited.
That's awesome, Sierra. I'm excited that you're so jazzed about everything. I don't yet. Stay tuned. There will be more coming probably later this year.
Okay, fantastic. Okay. What other questions do we have here? All right, let's dig back a little bit of ways. Way earlier in the presentation, Ali had asked, how do you assign a specific template list to particular clients? Because she liked your template, but I think she was just a little bit confused about how you would kind of get your template list or your particular templates and assign it to a particular person. So do you want to go back and double back to kind of sort of the beginning of that process and take a look at that? Hopefully that question makes sense.
Yeah, totally. I think I understand what you were asking. So let's say, for example, we're talking about our client onboarding, right? What we would do is we would go ahead and go into our templates and we'd say, okay, we're going to be onboarding for this project. We're going to go ahead and duplicate this and we're going to add this. We're going to call this Rachel's project. And then we're going to add this into our clients. And let's say, like we said earlier, Rachael is a website project. So we would add that in there. And then we're going to duplicate it. And now we can see our ClickUp is doing its thing. And if we give it a hot second and we hop into our website projects, it should, there it is, pop up. And now we've got Rachel's project here. And then we can go ahead and start doing our brain dump and actually get things rolling. If from there you are like ready to add a client in, let's say you want to add them as a guest, then you can go in and you can share that with them and you would search for them and you would add them as a guest and you would add them in and then you can actually assign something to them once they're added in there.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you for clarifying that. And I guess the additional question that I have, and again, I'm a total ClickUp novice, so I apologize if it's a dumb question, but are you duplicating that template list or whatever your template is in ClickUp every time you're doing it for that client? If you're going to do it that way, is it you're going to go ahead and copy it manually each time or duplicate it each time?
Yeah, so this process that I'm showing you, you would be doing that manually every time where you'd be duplicating that template depending on what template you want, right? If we're onboarding for a web project versus branding project, et cetera, you select the right one. But there are ways that you can have templates that are automated that you can do. I don't want to get into the details of that because that starts to get more complicated, but like there are ways that you can also automate some pieces too.
Got it. Thank you so much for that. Cool. Next question was from Calvina, and she was saying, when you change the phase, are you automating your emails from Dubsado to email clients? I think she was just curious about like what the actual communication side of that looks like, and is it automated? Is it you're just going back into Dubsado, maybe clicking approve on a workflow action that was pending? What does that look like? Because her ultimate goal was she wants to automate email from ClickUp using Dubsado or Gmail, is what it sounds like.
Okay, cool. So there are ways of doing that. I also will say too that like ClickUp has a built-in email feature, so you can actually email people directly from ClickUp. But again, a little bit more advanced, so I don't want to get into the details of that. But essentially, quickest answer would be yes. It's two parts. So when you're updating your statuses here, this is your internal tracking. So this is not actually automating or sending anything outside of ClickUp. You would then hop over to your Dubsado and you would say, okay, I followed up, I sent them that email, and then pop back in here and say, okay, Schmidt, I sent him that email. I'm going to go ahead and say I followed up with him on that day.
Got it. So just keeping an eye on things over here in ClickUp and then actually doing things in Dubsado, for example.
Exactly. Yeah. Dubsado would still be your execution piece.
That's okay. Cool. That's what I figured. And then another question from Calvina, and I think that it may have been answered in the chat, but I think it's a good question for anybody else who's also curious about it. But right here on the page you're on, for example, you see how you have those the icon that says follow up or booked, and it's got the cool little pie chart in there. She was curious how you can actually get those particular statuses to appear there. And another really helpful attendee had mentioned you go into specifically the App Center and then go to Click Apps and then find the status section. So do you want to just kind of walk through? Do you know exactly what I'm talking about, how to add those specific icons? Because they just like the way those looked.
Yes, absolutely. So this is a very easy feature, and it's exactly that. It sounds like somebody knew where they were going, but basically for that, you would go into your App Center, and we're going to go to our Click Apps, and we want to find, I'm just going to search to make it easier for status, and you're going to turn on your Show Status Progress.
Got
When
it.
you do that, then you can also show where it is. So maybe you don't want it in all your spaces, maybe you want it in all of them, etc. And then it will just toggle that on for you. So if I were to, let's say, turn that off, then it's going to take that away. And now we will see that, oops, let me go into this piece. We can see here that they're all just solid colors. So you do the opposite to turn them on.
Got it. That makes perfect sense. Thank you for showing that. I appreciate
Mm-hmm.
it. Okay. All of the backlog of questions that we had, and we are just about out of time here. So, Rachel, I do really want to thank you so much for coming on and doing this with us. It's been fantastic, and there was so many good questions. So, thank you to everyone in the chat who's asking all those fantastic questions. So, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yay. Thank
Uh,
you so much, everyone, for being here. Trevor, I'm so sorry I interrupted you.
no, not at all, not at all.
Okay.
Fine. I was
I just
just gonna.
also want to mention too, like if you're watching the replay and you have questions, send me a message. Connect with me on Instagram. Send me a message on my website, whatever that looks like. I am here for you. Just because you weren't able to make it here live, I am always happy to get nerdy and answer questions and help point you in the right direction. So feel free to send me a message.
Fantastic. We really appreciate that, Rachel. Thank you so much. And in case you're curious, I'd answered this a couple times in the chat there. Everyone who was a registrant of this webinar will automatically receive the recording via email. I'll include all of Rachel's information in that email, as well as on the YouTube post that we'll add to our YouTube channel as well. So keep an eye out for that. Thank you, thank you, thank you again, Rachel. I really appreciate it. And everyone in the chat, thank you so much. We'll see you next time, next week, actually, for our next webinar. We're going to be talking about Dubsado and Airtable. So another kind of a third-party app webinar series we have going on here. But I appreciate everyone's time today, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.